He's a gangster
They call me Frank the Money Store.
who'd rather be a comic.
You hear me?
No. I knew it.
And when Mad Dog saved his life,
You like some candy?
Why don't you give him a back rub while you're at it?
he returned the favor.
He wants me to be your friend for a week.
2 thumbs up for Mad Dog and Glory, say Siskel and Ebert. A completely original comedy. Robert De Niro and Bill Murray are priceless.
Where'd you hear that?
Mad Dog and Glory, rated R, starts tomorrow at theaters everywhere.
Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1993 film Mad Dog and Glory. Now, before I get around to sharing my thoughts on this film, I want to give a shout out to Farah for requesting this review. If there is another film, a TV show, or a topic you'd like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below. Now, Mad Dog and Glory, to me, is an oddball romance. It's marketed as more of a drama or a comedy, but to me personally, at the core of its narrative and its story, it's a romance. And it's a very charming, sweet, and genuinely heartfelt one. And at the end of the day, I was really surprised by this movie. I quite enjoyed it. And I would honestly say it's pretty underrated. It didn't do well when it came out, and it doesn't seem to be one of those films that's talked about that much. And after seeing it, I think that's a little too bad, because of the fact that there's a lot of things to like about this film. It's directed by John McNaughton, who directed Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, among other films like The Borrower. And this is a very different kind of film for him. And despite him being so far outside his comfort zone, I really do feel that he did a wonderful job directing this movie. I really like the rawness of the film in a lot of the sequences that deal with the grit and the realism. And at the same time, I also really like the compassion and the heartfelt scenes and the moments where you have Mad Dog falling madly in love with Glory. And I just think it's a film that, while it's not the most impressive when it comes to his career as a director, it's still a really good job because of how well he balances these 2 completely different tones. And there are moments where there's a lot of dark comedy, which I'm a big fan of. And on top of that, you have a sense of morbidity that just permeates throughout it, but it doesn't really overtake things. It doesn't dominate the screen. And there's a lot of things that I just really admired about the direction, even though it's not the best that I've ever seen, but there are some scenes and there are some moments here that are really admirable. The opening sequence, which is really clever and different, where it starts out black and white and then flashes to color, and then you have transitions that are very cool and inventive of screenshots that turn into crime scene photos. I thought that was a really cool and genuinely awesome way to transition from one scene to the next. Normally, a lot of sex scenes are very glamorized, and it's understandable because it's cinema, but I appreciated the fact that McNaughton shot the sex scenes in a very realistic fashion. It's not sexy all the time. It's sometimes gross and just very sloppy and just uneven, and the experience of it is more memorable than the actual action of sex. And I feel that that's really something that's displayed quite well here. I know critics have criticized the film for the fact that the sex scenes aren't glamorous. I think it's a positive because it helps the film stand out from the rest of the pack when it comes to these romance films or these romanticized narratives. And I just loved the dynamic between the three main characters. The dynamic between Mad Dog and Glory, and the dynamic between Mad Dog and Frank DeMilo, the mob enforcer. And I know the original ending was intended to be different, and I know the writer doesn't really like how the film becomes ultimately a happy ending kind of movie. I like that. I don't think that's a problem at all. I think it having a happy ending is not a detriment to the narrative or to the film. I think it actually helps the movie because it in a lot of ways it is a old school romance picture, and I feel that it having the happy ending where the guy gets the girl is actually the right way to end this, instead of a bleak and depressing kind of ending. Uh, I know that things were also initially different in terms of the confrontation between DeMilo and uh, Mad Dog. It was going to be one of those things where Mad Dog just gets his ass handed to him by Milo and doesn't really put up much of a fight. But the original test audiences didn't like that, so they had to do some reshoots where he at least puts up a bit of a fight and at least throws a few punches. I like that too. I like the fact that he actually does show some kind of guts. I like that he does land a few punches. He still doesn't win, and he still, for the most part, gets his butt kicked. So it's not like the uh, outcome is significantly different. So I don't really think it's that much of a problem. Um, and it's just one of those movies where, even when it comes to the comedy, it's not always the funniest kind of jokes or the funniest kind of gags. But then again, I don't really think it's a comedy. I think with the cast and with Bill Murray being involved, it was typecasted as something that it really wasn't. And I don't think it's really fair to judge this as a comedy because I don't really think it is one. There are some moments that might make you laugh, but if I was looking for a comedy, this is not one of the films that I would go to. But what really attracts me to this film is the romance. It's the love story that comes from a very unlikely place, that blossoms throughout the film between Mad Dog and Glory. I like the fact that she's initially brought into Mad Dog's life as a favor from this mob boss, and he's hesitant, reluctant to even accept it. But then throughout the course of the film, they really start to form a genuine bond with one another. And I think it's one of the stronger romances that I've seen as of late as a result, because it starts from such a unlikely place. And there's other things too that I like about the script and about the characters. I really like the fact that Mad Dog is a crime photographer, and he has a lot of personality traits and quirks that are associated with that. He's very withdrawn and very um, reluctant to do a lot of things because of the fact that he's just been exposed to so much death. Uh, he even has become desensitized so much to death that he has framed photos of his most acclaimed crime scene photographs in his apartment. I thought that was a really nice touch that really just made this character even more interesting. And then on top of that, I just love how DeMilo is such a charismatic and genuinely willing to please kind of guy. Like, he's a mob enforcer, and he's not someone that you want to mess with, but you can see why a lot of people follow him. You can see why a lot of people who shouldn't trust him ultimately do fall into his web, and they fall into his traps because he's just such a really charismatic individual. And as solid as the script is, I think it would not have worked as well without this cast, without the exact cast that was put together. Robert De Niro is an amazing actor, and it's really refreshing to see him play against type as Mad Dog, this very shy, very opposite of a tough guy character. And on the other hand, it's also really fun to see Bill Murray play against Type 2 as this mob enforcer, Frank DeMilo. And this is honestly one of Bill Murray's most underrated and most underappreciated roles to me, because he nails the comical clown aspect of this character, but then he also completely excels at the intimidation factor of this character. I was downright terrified of Bill Murray at times in this film. The moment where he just blows his top at Mad Dog, at Wayne, and when he will not give him back glory, when he won't return glory to him, he just completely turns on a dime and is just menacing and just somebody that just really oozes intimidation. And it just shows you that Bill Murray is such a much more multifaceted actor than a lot of people gave him credit for at the time. That he could play the mob heavy and it wouldn't come across as a miscasting, because he's just such a great actor. And then you have Uma Thurman, who was a rising star at the time and was really talented in her own right, and she's got some really great chemistry with Bill, as well as Robert De Niro, and I really liked the vulnerability of her character and the genuine sweetness of Glory as well. I thought she did a really good job. And then you have the supporting cast. I mean, you got David Caruso, who plays Robert De Niro's partner. He's quite good in that role. He's closer to what De Niro usually plays in these kind of films. He's more headstrong. He's more willing to go into a fight. And you also have like Tom Towles, who was in Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. He plays this other cop who's abusing this woman that lives next door to Wayne, and it was nice to see him work with McNaughton again, despite him playing such a piece of shit. And there's a few other cast members, but really it's De Niro, Thurman, and Murray's show. I mean, you also got like Mike Starr, who plays Harold, and Richard Belzer has a bit role, but for the most part, it's mainly the three titans that are the main focus of this story. Features some cinematography by Robbie Mueller, and I would say that it's well shot for the kind of film that it is. It's not anything that's particularly dazzling, but it's good. It's fine enough. And then you've got some editing by Elena Maggiani and Craig McKay, which I thought was pretty solid. And it features a score by Elmer Bernstein and Terje Reipdahl. I think that's the last name. I might have messed it up. The score, it's not particularly memorable, but it works. I actually think they're not really original songs, but the classic songs, the classic tunes that they chose from the soundtrack, they were more memorable than the score. I felt it went by at a pretty good pace. I wasn't that bored by it because I liked the characters. I liked the build up of their initial arcs, and it ultimately put a smile on my face at the end of the film. I actually even remember giving a bit of a clap, a bit of personal applause after it was over, because I honestly enjoyed it that much. Yeah, and I mean, there were even some lines of dialogue that I thought were really memorable and quite poignant and very poetic. There's a line in particular from Glory that really stood out to me, where she says, "Life is what happens to you while you're waiting for your ship to come in." And There are a lot of nice little nuggets like that throughout this film. I would recommend the movie if it at all interests you, especially to see Bill Murray and Robert De Niro play against type. The story is simple, but it has enough going on where it doesn't feel like it's too been there, done that. And overall, I think it's a really good film. Anyway, thanks for watching my review of Mad Dog and Glory, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.